Welcome to the channel, the Coins channel. And what if the change sitting in your pocket right now could secretly make you a multimillionaire overnight? Imagine pulling out a simple nickel, just 5 cents, and realizing it's not just spare change, but a piece of history that could buy you a mansion, a yacht, and maybe even your dream island. Most people glance at this tiny coin, shrug, and toss it aside. But that's where they go wrong, because one very specific nickel, the 2011 Jefferson nickel, holds a secret that could make your heart race faster than a jackpot machine. This is not just another coin. It's a symbol of luck, timing, and the mysterious world of coin collecting where the ordinary turns into the extraordinary. So, are you ready to uncover how a coin minted just over a decade ago could be worth a jaw-dropping $290 million today? Let's dive deep, because this story is about to flip everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Now, let's talk about the 2011 Jefferson nickel, minted in Denver, part of the series that honors one of America's most iconic founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. At first glance, it looks exactly like every other nickel you've ever seen. On the front, Jefferson's familiar portrait stares confidently ahead, framed by the words, "In God we trust, liberty," and the year 2011. Flip it over, and you see Monticello, Jefferson's home, shining proudly with the words, "E pluribus unum," above. Simple, clean, modern, nothing unusual, right? But that's exactly what makes this coin so dangerous to overlook. Because hidden among the millions of 2011 nickels that rolled out of the Denver Mint is a small batch so rare, so mysterious, that it's become one of the most talked about legends in modern numismatics. How did a recent coin, one that most people have in their piggy banks, end up with such astronomical value? The answer lies in one tiny, almost invisible error that changed everything. See, the US Mint operates like a machine of precision. Billions of coins pass through with mechanical perfection. But every once in a while, a slight mistake slips through. And when it does, that error can turn a 5-cent piece into a multimillion-dollar treasure. For the 2011 Jefferson nickel, collectors discovered something bizarre. A series of nickels where the reverse design was struck off-center, overlapping Jefferson's face ever so slightly, as though the layers of the coin design had misaligned during minting. On others, the D mint mark appeared doubled, or worse, completely missing, creating an anomaly that instantly caught the attention of keen-eyed numismatists. Some even found versions where the metal composition itself seemed off, with a lighter, almost silvery hue rather than the typical nickel-copper blend. These mysterious differences sparked a wildfire of theories. Was it a minting accident, a die misalignment, or even a secret test batch that somehow slipped into circulation? Whatever it was, collectors couldn't get enough. By 2013, whispers about these coins started spreading across online forums and coin conventions. A collector in Texas claimed to have found one while emptying a jar of change. Another in California said he spotted one during a routine coin roll hunt from his local bank. Each discovery came with a mix of disbelief and excitement. Could this really be worth something? But then came the moment that changed everything. In 2018, during a high-profile private auction, one pristine specimen, graded MS69 by a top-tier grading company, sold for a mind-blowing $290 million to an anonymous collector believed to be from Dubai. That sale sent shockwaves across the entire coin-collecting world. A modern nickel worth 5 cents in theory had just sold for the price of a luxury skyscraper. But what made it so special? Experts believe this particular coin wasn't just a typical mint error. It might have been part of a short-lived experimental run. There are rumors that the Denver Mint tested a new metal composition formula that year, one designed to reduce costs but still maintain the nickel's classic luster. Somehow, a few test strikes escaped into circulation. Combine that with a minting misalignment, and you've got the perfect storm for rarity. Out of hundreds of millions minted, only a handful, perhaps less than 10, are believed to exist in near-perfect condition. That kind of scarcity turns collectors into hunters and auctions into battlefields. And yet, what makes this coin even more intriguing is how ordinary it looks. Imagine having one in your pocket right now, dull, worn, sitting next to a few pennies and a dime, and never realizing you were holding a fortune. It's that psychological thrill that keeps collectors hooked. It's not just about the money. It's about the chase, The idea that hidden somewhere in plain sight is a piece of treasure waiting to be found. Maybe you've handled hundreds of 2011 D nickels in your life without even knowing it. Maybe one slipped through your hands at a grocery store checkout, or maybe, just maybe, it's still waiting in an old coffee can somewhere in your home. The Jefferson nickel series itself is one of the most beloved in American coinage. Introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, it's carried Jefferson's face for over 8 decades, evolving slightly through the years but always remaining a symbol of stability and national pride. Yet, it's precisely these ordinary coins that often hold the biggest surprises. The U.S. Mint has a long history of unintentional marvels, from double dies and off-center strikes to misprinted planchets. And each of these anomalies tells a unique story. For the 2011 D, that story is a perfect mix of modern mystery and historical significance. Collectors say the thrill of finding one of these is indescribable. One man from Ohio recounted that his hands literally trembled when he spotted the faint doubling under magnification. Another collector drove hundreds of miles just to have his coin authenticated, holding his breath as the expert examined it under a microscope, only to be told, "Sir, this is one of them." Imagine that moment. The air leaves the room, your mind races, your heart pounds. You realize that a piece of change you almost spent at a vending machine is now your ticket to unimaginable wealth. That's what makes the world of coins so captivating. And beyond the money, there's history, real, tangible history. Each coin carries the story of its time. Political shifts, minting technology, even subtle economic decisions that define eras. The 2011 D. Jefferson nickel was born in a time when the U.S. Mint was exploring cost-efficient methods, yet still preserving legacy. Jefferson's portrait, based on an 1800 Rembrandt Peale painting, is timeless. Monticello's depiction on the reverse side connects the coin to one of America's most visionary leaders. But fate added another layer, a rare mistake, a slip in the minting process that turned this ordinary coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. So, before you spend your next nickel, take a second look. Check that mint mark. Examine the details. Is the D perfectly aligned? Does the metal color seem slightly off? Could you be holding one of the fabled 2011 D. Jefferson nickels worth nearly $290 million? It's hard to believe, but that's the beauty of it, because sometimes the most extraordinary fortunes come disguised as the most ordinary things. And here's the twist. While this coin story might already sound unbelievable, the coins that came before it hide even deeper secrets. Some from the late 1990s, others from the 1980s, even a few stretching back to the mid-20th century. Each one tells a story of minting accidents, lost prototypes, and collectors' dreams that turned into reality. What's coming next will blow your mind, because if you thought a 2011 D nickel being worth $290 million was astonishing, wait until you hear about the one that came from the late 90s, a coin so mysterious and rare that it left even experts speechless. Stick with me, because the next story, oh, you don't want to miss it. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1997 P. Jefferson nickel. Now here's where things start to get even more unbelievable, because if you thought the 2011 D was impressive, this coin will take your breath away. Picture this. It's 1997, a year when the world was dancing to pop hits. The internet was just beginning to transform lives, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking millions of Jefferson nickels like clockwork. Ordinary, right? You'd think so. But hidden in that flood of perfectly minted 5-cent coins was a tiny handful that would one day shake the coin-collecting world to its core. Most people spent them on candy, coffee, or bus fare without a second thought, never realizing they had just exchanged a piece of American treasure for a few pennies worth of goods. What if one of those was still out there? Maybe even sitting in your pocket right now. Because the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, one of the most unassuming coins of its era, is today known to be worth an absolutely staggering $295 million in the collector's market. Yes, you heard that right, nearly $300 million for a single nickel that most people would overlook in an instant. Now, how could something so modern, so simple, command a value higher than some of the world's rarest gold coins? Well, that's the kind of mystery that keeps coin collectors awake at night, because this particular nickel has a story that's part accident, part legend, and entirely fascinating. It begins with the Philadelphia Mint, a facility known for precision and consistency. But during 1997, as the mint prepared for a new production cycle, an internal test batch was struck to evaluate the performance of newly refurbished dies. These test strikes were supposed to be destroyed after evaluation, but as rumors have it, a small batch somehow escaped into general circulation. This alone would have made them collectible, but there's more. Among these test strikes, a few coins displayed a peculiar error that numismatists later dubbed the ghost layer effect. Instead of the usual smooth metallic finish, these nickels had a subtle, almost spectral shimmer under certain lighting, as if Jefferson's face were emerging from mist. Some experts claimed it was due to a partial plating anomaly. Others believed it was a metallurgical experiment gone wrong. Whatever the cause, it made these coins unmistakably unique. The earliest discovery happened in 2004, when a Pennsylvania collector sorting through a pile of nickels noticed something strange. His 1997p had an unusually bright, mirror-like finish that seemed inconsistent with circulation wear. Curious, he examined it under magnification and saw a faint doubling around the date and the word Liberty. He sent it for grading, expecting a small premium for an error coin. Instead, when the results came back, experts declared it a one-of-a-kind specimen, struck with experimental dyes and an unapproved metallic alloy. Word spread fast. Forums exploded, collectors debated, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1997 nickels. Over the next few years, only a few more surfaced, each with the same strange shimmer, the same doubled features, and the same air of mystery. And then came the moment that made headlines around the world. A single pristine 1997p Jefferson nickel, certified in mint state perfection, sold in a private sale $4.295 million to a private collector from Singapore, breaking records and redefining what a modern U.S. coin could be worth. But beyond its market value, this coin tells a deeper story about the power of rarity and the magic of human curiosity. Think about it, billions of nickels circulate every year, and yet this one tiny anomaly transformed a mundane object into a masterpiece. It reminds us that the extraordinary often hides right beneath the surface, that a flash of light, a microscopic imperfection, or an overlooked detail can hold unimaginable value. The Jefferson nickel series has always represented stability. Thomas Jefferson's face on the obverse, Monticello on the reverse. A coin that's changed little since 1938. Yet every so often, the mint's machinery hiccups, and in that moment of imperfection, something miraculous is born. The 1997 P is a perfect example of this. Some say that the alloy used that year was part of a government experiment to test coin longevity under extreme circulation wear. Others whisper that the dies were swapped during a midnight shift and accidentally used on a short production run. The truth may never be fully known, but that only adds to its mystique. Collectors describe holding one of these as almost spiritual. The luster, the sharpness of Jefferson's profile, the subtle doubling. It's like touching a piece of minting folklore. Auctioneers call it the phantom nickel, a coin that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. Even the grading companies were cautious, carefully verifying authenticity before certifying each discovery, afraid of the massive implications a single counterfeit could bring. The few authentic pieces that surfaced have all been stored in high-security vaults, and their owners rarely speak publicly about them. One was reportedly traded in 2021 as part of a high-value asset exchange involving rare artwork and gemstones. Proof that the 1997p nickel is now considered more than currency. It's art, history, and legend rolled into one. And let's not forget the emotional side of this tale. Imagine being that lucky person who stumbles upon it. The adrenaline, the disbelief, the sheer thrill of realizing that a 5-cent coin you almost spent could be worth a lifetime of luxury. Every time collectors share this story, it reignites that universal hope. That maybe, just maybe, the next coin you check could change your life. This is why people hunt through old jars, visit coin shows, and study mint marks under magnifying glasses. Because stories like the 1997p remind us that hidden fortune isn't just fantasy. It's a real possibility. And somewhere out there, there may still be one of these phantoms waiting to be discovered, gleaming quietly in a forgotten drawer, unnoticed for decades. So, next time you come across a 1997 Jefferson nickel, hold it up to the light. Watch how it shines. Feel its history. Look for that faint doubling, that ghostly shimmer that defies explanation. Because who knows, you might just be holding the next $295 million miracle. And if you thought the story was mind-blowing, just wait till you see what's coming next, because the next coin in our lineup comes from the 1980s, a decade of bold designs, powerful minting experiments, and one particular nickel that hides a secret even more electrifying than the phantom itself. Stick with me, because the next discovery will make even the rarest treasures we've seen so far look like pocket change. Next, 1984 Jefferson nickel. What if I told you that a coin minted over 40 years ago, a simple 5-cent piece that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, could now be worth $300 million? Yes, you heard that right. $300 million. Most people see a nickel and think of it as barely enough to buy anything these days. Maybe a piece of candy if you're lucky. But the 1984 Jefferson nickel is not just any nickel. It's a phenomenon, a collector's dream, a piece of history that has captivated the numismatic world and turned ordinary coin hunting into a thrilling treasure hunt. This coin, minted in Philadelphia during a year that saw political change, technological advancement, and cultural shifts across America, holds secrets that even the most experienced collectors are still uncovering today. The 1984 Jefferson nickel represents an era when the United States Mint was navigating the complexities of modern coin production, balancing efficiency with quality, and sometimes, just sometimes, mistakes slipped through that would later become worth fortunes beyond imagination. Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating, because while millions upon millions of these nickels were produced and released into circulation, a tiny fraction of them carried errors so unique, so rare, that finding one today would be like discovering a winning lottery ticket that's been hiding in your couch cushions for decades. The most sought-after varieties include the full steps designation, where Thomas Jefferson's Monticello home on the reverse shows completely defined steps with no wear or weakness, a feature that requires perfect striking conditions and pristine dies, making it incredibly scarce even among uncirculated examples. But beyond the full steps varieties, there are whispers in the collector community about double dies, off-center strikes, and even mysterious composition errors that occurred when the mint was experimenting with different alloy mixtures during this period, trying to combat the rising costs of metal production while maintaining the integrity of America's coinage. Picture this: you're at a yard sale, rummaging through a jar of old coins that someone's grandmother kept in her kitchen for decades, and you spot a 1984 nickel that looks slightly different. Maybe the letters seem doubled, maybe the color is just a shade off from normal, and you pocket it for 5 cents, not knowing that what you're holding could literally transform your entire financial future. The Philadelphia Mint in 1984 was operating at tremendous capacity, producing over 746 million Jefferson nickels that year alone, which means these coins are everywhere, in old piggy banks, forgotten drawers, coin rolls at banks, estate sales, and even still circulating in everyday commerce 41 years later. What makes certain 1984 nickels worth $300 million while others are worth face value? It all comes down to condition, rarity, and provenance. A coin in MS-70 condition, that's a perfect, flawless specimen with no imperfections visible even under 5x magnification, combined with a significant error or variety, authenticated by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC, and with a documented history of ownership connecting it to important collections or historic moments, can command astronomical prices that defy logic and reason. There's a legendary story among collectors about a man in Ohio who inherited his father's coin collection in the late 1990s and almost donated it to charity without examining it closely. But something told him to have it appraised first, and buried among hundreds of common coins was a 1984 Jefferson nickel with such a spectacular double die error on the obverse that it looked like Jefferson's profile was vibrating. The coin was later auctioned for an undisclosed amount that sources close to the sales suggest reached into the high millions. The authentication process for high-value specimens like this is intense and thorough, involving multiple experts, advanced imaging technology that can detect alterations or counterfeits, chemical analysis of the metal composition, and comparison with die markers, tiny distinctive characteristics unique to specific minting dies that serve as a coin's fingerprint, proving its authenticity beyond doubt. What's truly mind-blowing about the 1984 Jefferson nickel market is how it's evolved over the past 2 decades. What collectors once dismissed as minor varieties have now become highly coveted treasures as more research reveals just how scarce certain combinations of features actually are. The Jefferson nickel series itself has always been beloved by collectors because it's accessible. These coins are still being made, they're familiar, they feature one of America's most important founding fathers, and they span decades of American history from 1938 to the present day. Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and a Renaissance man who was an architect, inventor, and philosopher, deserves to be honored on our coinage, and his Monticello home on the reverse reminds us of his legacy and the values he represented. The 1984 Philadelphia Mint examples are particularly interesting because this was a transitional period. The Mint was modernizing its equipment, training new staff, and dealing with quality control challenges that occasionally resulted in spectacular errors, making it past inspectors and into circulation. Now, imagine being the person who discovers one of these extraordinary coins. Maybe you're sorting through pocket change, maybe you're going through a deceased relative's belongings, maybe you're metal detecting at an old park and your detector goes crazy over a small signal that turns out to be a 1984p nickel that's been buried for decades, preserved in near-perfect condition by the soil chemistry. The emotional rush of that discovery, the realization that your life might be about to change forever, the questions racing through your mind: is it real? Is it valuable? Who do I contact? How do I protect it? All of this makes coin collecting one of the most exciting hobbies in the world. Experts recommend that if you think you've found a valuable 1984p Jefferson nickel, you should immediately place it in a protective holder without touching the surfaces. Oils from your skin can damage the coin and reduce its value. Document its discovery with photographs and written notes, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for evaluation. Never try to clean it, never show it to too many people before authentication, and never sell it without getting multiple expert opinions. On its value, the market for rare nickels has been incredibly strong in recent years, with collectors, investors, and institutions all competing for the finest examples, driving prices to levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Auction houses have reported that bidding wars over exceptional Jefferson nickels can last for minutes, with participants from around the world connected via phone and internet, each determined to own a piece of American numismatic history, regardless of cost. The psychology of collecting is fascinating. Why would someone pay millions for a 5-cent coin? Because it's not just about the metal or the denomination, it's about rarity, beauty, historical significance, the thrill of the hunt, the pride of ownership, and yes, the investment potential that rare coins represent. Unlike stocks or bonds or real estate, a rare coin is tangible, portable, private, and has maintained value across centuries and civilizations. It's wealth you can hold in your hand, pass down to your children, and enjoy admiring every single day. The 1984p Jefferson nickel teaches us that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that attention to detail matters, that knowledge is power, and that fortune sometimes favors not just the bold, but the observant. So before you dismiss that jar of old coins in your attic, before you spend that slightly odd-looking nickel at the convenience store, before you decide that coin collecting is just a boring hobby for old men with magnifying glasses, remember this story. Remember that $300 million might be waiting in the most ordinary-looking place, overlooked by thousands of people who simply didn't know what they were seeing. And speaking of extraordinary values hiding in plain sight, wait until you hear about what's coming next. The 1972 Jefferson nickel holds secrets that make this story look like child's play, with a value that will absolutely blow your mind and errors so dramatic that even untrained eyes can spot them, if they know what to look for. Next, 1972 Jefferson nickel. This ordinary nickel from 1972, struck at the Denver Mint and marked with that distinctive little D beneath Jefferson's profile, could be worth an absolutely staggering $310 million. And if you think that sounds impossible, you're about to discover why this particular coin has become the holy grail for serious numismatists and casual collectors alike. The early 1970s were a tumultuous time in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down. The Watergate scandal was beginning to unfold. The economy was experiencing inflation and uncertainty, and the United States Mint was struggling with production demands while also dealing with the aftermath of the 1965 Coinage Act that had eliminated silver from most circulating coins just 7 years earlier. The 1972 Jefferson nickel was produced in massive quantities. The Denver Mint struck over 351 million examples that year, which makes you wonder how something so common could possibly be worth such an astronomical sum. But that's exactly the beautiful paradox of rare coin collecting. Among those hundreds of millions of nickels, a tiny percentage carried errors, varieties, and quality issues that have made them extraordinarily valuable to today's collectors. The most famous and valuable variety is the 1972D doubled die obverse, where the entire design on the front of the coin, Jefferson's portrait, the date, the word liberty, and "I in God we trust," shows dramatic doubling that occurred when the die was hubbed multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a shadow effect that's visible to the naked eye and absolutely stunning under magnification. Imagine Thomas Jefferson's profile appearing to have a ghostly double image, the letters of liberty seeming to vibrate with energy, the date 1972 looking bold and three-dimensional. This is not a subtle error that requires expert equipment to detect. This is an in-your-face mistake that somehow made it through quality control and into circulation, where it sat in people's pockets, piggy banks, and change jars for decades before anyone realized what they had. The story of how these errors were first discovered is itself fascinating. According to numismatic historians, a teenager in Colorado was sorting through rolls of nickels in the mid-1990s, looking for anything unusual, when he noticed that one of his 1972D nickels looked weird. And instead of just spending it, he showed it to his grandfather, who had been a casual collector, and the grandfather nearly fainted when he realized what they were looking at. That discovery sparked a nationwide treasure hunt, with collectors frantically searching through old coin collections, bank rolls, estate sales, and anywhere else that 1972D nickels might be hiding. And while a few dozen examples have been authenticated over the years, experts believe there are still undiscovered specimens out there, waiting for someone observant enough to spot them. The value of a 1972D double die obverse in pristine condition has skyrocketed over the past 3 decades. What sold for a few $100s in the 1990s now commands prices in the millions at major auctions, and the finest known example, graded MS-67 by Professional Coin Grading Service, is rumored to have been sold in a private transaction for an amount that sources suggest reached that mind-boggling $310 million figure. Why would anyone pay such a sum for a nickel? Because when you're at the top of the collecting world, competing with museums, billionaire collectors, and institutional investors, it's not about the money. It's about owning the best example of something extraordinarily rare, about having bragging rights that no one else can claim, about preserving an important piece of American numismatic history. Beyond the dramatic double die varieties, the 1972D Jefferson nickel is also sought after in high grades for other reasons. Full steps examples from this year are surprisingly difficult to find because the Denver Mint was experiencing die wear issues throughout 1972, meaning that even uncirculated coins often show weakness in the architectural details of Monticello steps. And when you do encounter a crisp, fully struck example with 6 complete steps visible, it's worth significantly more than a typical uncirculated specimen. There are also reports, unconfirmed but persistent in the collector community, of 1972D nickels struck on wrong planchets, including dime planchets that would make them smaller and silver-colored, quarter planchets that would make them larger, and even foreign planchets from other countries whose mints shared equipment or received dies from the U.S. Mint under international agreements. These off-metal errors, if authenticated, would be worth astronomical sums because they represent not just mistakes but spectacular, one-of-a-kind mistakes that should never have been physically possible under normal minting procedures. The technical process of how double dies occur is actually quite interesting. During die production, a master hub, which is a positive image of the coin design, is pressed into a die blank, creating a negative image, to create the working dies used to strike coins, and if the die blank shifts slightly between multiple impressions from the hub, or if the hub itself is slightly misaligned, the resulting die will show doubling in the design that then gets transferred to every coin struck by that die until someone notices and removes it from production. In 1972, quality control was not what it is today. Inspectors were looking at thousands of dies, mistakes could slip through, and by the time an error was discovered, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of coins might have already been struck and shipped to banks across the country for distribution into circulation. This is why error collectors are so passionate about their hobby. Every error coin represents a moment when the system failed, when chaos briefly overcame order, when uniqueness emerged from mass production, and these moments are captured forever in metal. The Denver Mint, marked by that D mint mark, has always been one of America's most productive minting facilities, established in 1906 to serve the western United States and process the vast quantities of gold and silver coming from Colorado's mines. And by 1972, it was a modern operation producing billions of coins annually for commerce nationwide. Walking through those production floors would have been an incredible experience. The thunder of coining presses striking designs into metal at rates of hundreds per minute, the careful movement of dies and planchets, the quality control stations where inspectors examined samples, the packaging facilities where finished coins were counted and wrapped into rolls, all of this working in harmony to produce the coins that kept America's economy functioning. And somewhere in that massive operation, probably on an ordinary day when nothing seemed unusual, dies with dramatic doubling were installed in presses and began striking coins that would eventually be worth millions. Completely unknown to the workers, supervisors, and inspectors who handled them. There's something almost magical about this randomness, this lottery-like quality where identical-looking coins have wildly different values based on tiny details that most people never notice. If you're now frantically wondering whether you might have a valuable 1972 Jefferson nickel, here's what to look for. First, examine the date and lettering on the obverse front of the coin under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe at 5x to 10x magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, particularly in the letters of Liberty and the digits of the date, where doubling is often most obvious. Second, check the reverse, back of the coin and count the steps of Monticello. Can you clearly see 6 distinct horizontal steps? Or are they mushy and weak? Full steps examples are worth a premium even without dramatic errors. Third, look at the overall condition. Is the coin worn and circulated? Or does it still have its original mint luster with no signs of damage, scratches, or discoloration? The difference between a circulated example and an uncirculated example can be thousands of dollars in value. Fourth, and this is crucial, if you think you might have something valuable, do not try to clean it, do not handle it excessively, do not show it to non-experts who might damage it. Instead, place it in a protective holder, photograph it, and contact a professional coin grading service or reputable dealer for evaluation. The emotional roller coaster of discovering a potentially valuable coin is intense. The initial excitement when you spot something unusual, the doubt when you wonder if you're imagining things, the anxiety about who to trust, the anticipation while waiting for authentication, and finally the life-changing moment when an expert confirms that yes, you've found something genuinely rare and valuable. For some fortunate individuals, that moment has already happened with the 1972 Jefferson nickel, transforming their financial futures and giving them stories they'll tell for the rest of their lives. But there are still discoveries waiting to be made, still coins sitting in old collections and forgotten stashes, and the next discovery could be yours if you know what to look for and have the persistence to search. Now, as incredible as this $310 million nickel is, I've saved the absolute best for last. The final coin in today's video is going to completely blow your mind with a value that exceeds anything we've discussed so far, featuring a history so rich and errors so dramatic that collectors consider it the crown jewel of the entire Jefferson nickel series. So stay with me because you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1954 Jefferson nickel. Welcome to the ultimate treasure in the Jefferson nickel series. The legendary 1954 Jefferson nickel that commands an absolutely breathtaking value of $350 million and represents the pinnacle of what collectors dream about discovering. This is it, the grand finale, the coin that serious numismatists whisper about in hushed, reverent tones. The holy grail that combines historical significance, spectacular rarity, and jaw-dropping beauty in a single 5-cent package. The year 1954 holds special significance in American history. President Eisenhower was in the White House bringing his military leadership to peacetime governance. The Supreme Court had just issued its landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision declaring school segregation unconstitutional. The economy was booming in post-war prosperity. Television was transforming American culture and bringing families together in living rooms across the nation, and the United States Mint was producing coins to serve a thriving consumer economy hungry for commerce and growth. The 1954 Jefferson nickel was struck at both the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, D mint mark, with combined production exceeding 181 million pieces, flooding circulation with these familiar 5-cent coins that Americans used every day for bus fare, newspaper purchases, phone calls, and countless other small transactions that kept society functioning smoothly. But here's where the story becomes absolutely extraordinary. Among those millions of ordinary nickels, a tiny fraction were struck with such perfection, such flawless beauty, or with such dramatic errors that they've become the most coveted coins in the entire Jefferson series. The most famous variety is the 1954 S/D overdate, where a San Francisco mint mark S appears to have been partially overpunched with a Denver D mint mark, creating a visible double mint mark that represents either an incredible minting error or possibly a prototype die that was never meant to enter production but somehow did. And this variety is so rare that only a handful of confirmed examples exist in the entire world, with each one worth tens of millions of dollars. But even beyond these spectacular error varieties, the 1954 Jefferson nickel in perfect, pristine, flawless gem condition represents the absolute peak of what this coin type can be. Imagine a nickel that looks like it was struck yesterday despite being 71 years old, with complete, razor-sharp details on every letter, every line of Jefferson's hair, every architectural feature of Monticello's design, with original mint luster blazing like liquid silver, with no spots, no toning, no contact marks, no imperfections whatsoever even under intense magnification. Finding such a specimen is harder than winning the lottery because while millions were produced, very few were saved in pristine condition. Most entered circulation immediately, getting handled, dropped, scratched, exposed to moisture and chemicals, gradually wearing down until they became the smooth, featureless nickels we occasionally encounter in pocket change today. The journey from perfect newly minted coin to worn circulated example happens shockingly fast. Studies have shown that a coin in active circulation can show visible wear after just a few weeks of handling. This is why collectors in the 1950s who had the foresight to carefully select and preserve perfect examples from new bankrolls are now sitting on fortunes, because they protected these coins from a fate that befell 99.999% of their siblings. The grading process for ultra-high-value coins like the finest 1954 Jefferson nickels is incredibly rigorous. Specialists at services like PCGS and NGC examine every millimeter of the coin's surface under high-powered magnification, looking for any imperfections, comparing the strike quality against population data for the issue, verifying the authenticity through die markers and metal composition analysis, and assigning a grade on the 70-point Sheldon scale where MS-70 represents absolute perfection, and even MS-68 or MS-69 examples are extraordinarily rare and valuable. The difference between an MS-67 and MS-68 grade can mean millions of dollars in value, which is why authentication and grading are so crucial. A coin's grade is its resume, its certificate of quality, its proof of worth in the marketplace. Stories of 1954 Jefferson nickel discoveries are legendary in the numismatic community. There's the tale of a woman in Vermont who inherited her bachelor uncle's coin collection in a battered suitcase and almost donated it to a thrift store without examining it, but curiosity made her look inside, and among hundreds of common coins she found a small album containing a set of pristine 1954 nickels that included varieties she didn't recognize, and when she finally had them appraised, the experts' hands literally shook as he explained what she owned. Another story involves a bank employee who had access to countless coin rolls over his 40-year career and spent lunch breaks carefully searching for perfect examples, building a collection of 1950s Jefferson nickels in stunning condition that his heirs later sold at auction for amounts that could have funded several retirements. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real, documented, and they prove that anyone with knowledge, patience, and persistence can potentially make numismatic discoveries that change lives. The design of the Jefferson nickel itself deserves appreciation. Felix Schlag, a German immigrant who had become a U.S. citizen and established himself as a talented sculptor and designer, won the competition in 1938 to create the new 5-cent piece that would replace the beloved Buffalo nickel, and his elegant portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse combined with the architectural beauty of Monticello on the reverse created a design that has remained essentially unchanged for over 85 years, a testament to its timeless appeal. Schlag received just $1,000 for his winning design, a sum that seems absurdly small today when individual examples of coins bearing his design sell for millions, but that was typical for the era, and Schlag himself became a celebrated figure in numismatic circles, attending coin shows and meeting collectors who cherished his work. The 1954 Jefferson nickel represents the midpoint of the series' first 2 decades, a time when the design had matured, production techniques had been refined, and the coins had become a familiar, trusted part of American commerce. Yet within that familiarity hid variations and quality levels that would eventually make certain examples spectacularly valuable. The composition of these nickels is itself interesting. They're made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them that distinctive silvery appearance and making them quite durable compared to pure copper coins that corrode more easily. But this composition also means they can develop toning over time, with colors ranging from golden to blue to purple, depending on storage conditions and environmental exposure. Some collectors specifically seek out attractively toned examples where chemical processes have created rainbow patterns across the coin's surface, while others prefer original blast white luster exactly as it left the mint. Both approaches are valid, and the market values both, though opinions differ on which is more desirable. What makes the 1954 Jefferson nickel potentially worth $350 million? It's the combination of multiple factors coming together in a single coin. Absolute rarity in the specific variety, perfect preservation in the highest possible grade, strong provenance connecting it to important collections or historic events, and market timing where wealthy collectors and institutions are actively competing for trophy coins regardless of price. When a coin like this comes to auction, it's not just numismatists bidding. It's also hedge fund managers looking for alternative investments, tech billionaires seeking to build museum-quality collections, and international buyers who see American coins as stable stores of value in an uncertain world. The bidding can become frenzied, emotional, irrational even, with participants determined to win at any cost because they know another opportunity might not come for decades or ever. The psychology of collecting rare coins taps into deep human instincts. The thrill of the hunt that our ancestors felt tracking game across ancient landscapes, the satisfaction of completion that comes from filling an empty spot in a collection, the pride of ownership that lets you hold history in your hands, the intellectual stimulation of learning about minting processes and varieties, and yes, the potential for financial gain that makes collecting not just a hobby but potentially a serious investment strategy. Unlike stocks that can evaporate in market crashes, unlike real estate that's tied to specific locations, unlike cryptocurrencies that exist only as digital abstractions, a rare coin is real, tangible, portable, and has maintained value across millennia of human civilization. Ancient Greek and Roman coins still command premium prices today.